Hey, thanks for clicking on my video. What we have today is a Beretta shotgun. This is a model AL2, late 60s, early 70s. This shotgun, the stock has come loose and we're going to tighten the stock. Really simple procedure. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. As you can see, the stock has some wiggle in it. We're going to tighten that up. Won't take but just a second. There'll be 2 screws in the butt pad, and we'll take those out. Just bear with me 1 second. I like to take these out a little bit at a time on each side. That way the screw head doesn't try to come out of the recoil pad. Especially on an older shotgun with an older recoil pad, it can just make it look a little. It starts to tear. So I don't want to do that because I don't want to replace the recoil pad. If you were going to replace the recoil pad, it would be this simple. Taking the screws out, putting a new recoil pad on, and the recoil pad, when you do put it back on, will be directional. There is a small end and a big end, and a small end and a big end. So we want to make sure we get it oriented right before we start putting these screws back in. There we go. This shotgun is loose enough that I can actually unscrew this with my hands. I'm going to take it completely off and show you what I'm talking about. Also, it's important to note the orientation of your nut. This one actually has a fine line in it on that side, so it would be in your best interest you put that back together. And here's what it looks like without the stock. If you had a new stock for this shotgun, you could put it on at this time. Now, when you take this off and put it back on, there is a small plate inside that has to make sure it goes back in. Go ahead and take it out, and then I'll put it back in together. And this plate it also has a lip, as you can see, and there's a lip inside the stock of the shotgun that it goes in. So I always like to get my finger down in there and start this by hand a couple of times to make sure it's not cross-threaded. Give it a couple of good turns, make sure it's on there, and then we can take our socket, go ahead and tighten it down as far as you can. Alright, that is hand tight. We want to make sure everything on the stock is lining up. And here, make sure it's not kind of jumbled itself off to the side. Make sure it's tight. This is where I was talking about. As you can see, I've got very little space here, not enough. The ratchet would work, but I don't want to hit the wood and mess that up. So I'm going to put my extension on. Like I said, if I had a shorter extension, I would use that. And I'm just going to tighten it. You don't want to over torque it. So I like to grab the top of the ratchet by the head instead of the handle. That way I don't get too much torque on it. I don't have the leverage, so it's a little harder to over tighten something. From here, we will make sure this is oriented the correct way. Big end, little end, big end, little end. And then we'll start this back. I'm going to do this the exact same way. Give it a couple of turns there. Come over to this side, give it a couple of turns, and then I'll work itself back down. That way I don't have my screw head stick back through and rag up my buttstock or my recoil pad. This recoil pad is obviously pretty close to 50 years old, so it has seen its better day. And then just kind of make sure they're hand tight. You don't want to over tighten these screws either. They're just wood screws. And that is it. There you have it. No more play in the shotgun stock, and it is good to go.